Today's guest is a seasoned athlete with some really inspiring, some really ambitious goals. She empowers both kids and adults to take the first step towards their own goals while also working on accomplishing her own. She is a mother, a runner, a coach. These are just a few of her distinctions. Deanna Grimes joined me on What's on Your Plate to share her hows and whys and a little bit of her what's next. Let's dive in. Hey, everybody. I am here today with a good friend from the running world. I'm excited to have her here today, Deanna Grimes, here with me today to just speak on things that we both relate to, like running and mothering and coaching and all the things. I asked her to spend some time with me to talk about what has inspired her, what motivates her, and how she hopes to influence others to step into believing in themselves like she does. Welcome, Deanna. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. You've mentioned that you've listened to the podcast. Thanks for being a fan too.
Yeah, I listen to all types of podcasts, mostly true crime. I'm not going to lie about that. But I always enjoy listening to podcasts of friends because I always feel like they're going to share something I didn't think of, or maybe I'll be inspired by the person they have on. So.
Yeah, for sure. I listen to a variety of things too, although not so much true crime because I'm super sensitive and end up having nightmares, but that's a different story. Yeah, so that's a little too much for me. But again, I just appreciate you taking the time to be here today. And one of the things that I always remember about you, and I know your journey started long before this, but you and I were expecting at the same time. And I stopped running far sooner than you did. I think I was 30 weeks or something, and my body was just not having it. But I can remember being at the fairgrounds and you were like ready in regards to, your baby coming into this world. And I was just so in awe. And, you just kept kicking out those miles right up until pretty much the end of the pregnancy. Tell me about what that meant to you to be able to keep doing what you loved during, that time.
Yeah, it was a crazy time for sure. I can remember people, it was a funny time because I feel like people thought it was so cool, or they didn't understand why I was still running. And for me, it was just sort of a way to stay motivated to like have something besides work and being pregnant.
Right.
And I was really busy with work at that time, and it just felt like the one thing I still had control over was being able to just exercise and run. And I remember my doctor saying, just don't stop unless you want to. And so I just never did. And I ran a lot that year. But part of it was that I had already signed up for some marathons, and I thought, well, I mean, all that matters is that I finish and that I do it. And so I actually ran a 5K on a Saturday, and Lilith was born through an emergency C-section the following Thursday.
Oh my gosh. That's so amazing. And, we talked a little bit before on how, unless you're a runner, and especially in the scenario of pregnancy, people either think you're awesome or they think you're crazy. It's one or the other. And I guess it depends on who you're talking to, what the opinion is. But from my vantage point, I think you're awesome.
Yeah, I think it gave me like now as like I mean, I only have one daughter, and she's 8 now. So I'm far removed from pregnancy or having little ones or knowing what it's like to have a toddler around. But I think I have so much more of a perspective of like, you should do what's best for you. And like running was what was best for me at that time. It gave me something that I can't explain really. And I think that that's something that I with other moms, like if they're doing something I didn't do, I respect that because maybe that's what's best for them.
Oh, absolutely. I can really relate to that. And I think it's true for me now as well. My son is 8 as well. And there's a big part of me that I'm a runner for myself. That's what I need now too. I needed it then, but I also need it now more than ever. Just
Mhm.
you're this whole person before your child comes along, right? And it's like holding
Yeah.
on to that and making sure that you're still you is important. And running
Yeah.
is a big part of that for me, as it seems to be for
Oh,
you too.
yeah, for sure. I feel like it's good for my mental health. I don't feel like I get a lot of alone time. I mean, I'm lucky that I do work remote a couple days a week, but for the most part, I'm at work or I'm coaching or I'm with Lilith or I'm with Jason. And so I just feel like it's just such a time to be alone with my own thoughts and my own, I can listen to whatever I want to listen to, and I can go whatever route I want to go. And so I think that that's something that really helps me just be by myself sometimes.
That's such valuable time, and I can completely relate to that. Take us back a little bit though. Let's talk about what running was like for you when you started and why you found yourself on the path of being a long distance runner.
Yeah, that's a crazy story. My so my best friend got engaged, and we have been friends since we were 16. And I thought, oh my God, like I'm going to be in a wedding. Like I'm getting older. Like I need to like take care of myself. And so I joined Weight Watchers and I lost almost 50 pounds. And in that process, I had never exercised really. I mean, I played like a little bit of softball growing up, but I never did really like any serious sports at all. And I don't know what happened to running in the last what I don't know 10, 12 to 15 years, but it has like blown up, I feel like. And maybe that's because social media and the internet, like so many things have blown up in those, 10 plus years.
Mhm.
But I felt like I knew nothing about running or how to find anything about running. And someone at Weight Watchers said, I just Googled couch to 5K. And so that's what I did. And then I went home to visit my family in Ohio, and my mom's like, "We're going to do the breast cancer walk." And I'm like, "Well, I'm going to run because I've been doing all this running." And then that's the day I learned the difference between a 5K and 5 miles.
That was a humbling experience, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And so then that's when I just started like looking up local races in Northwest Indiana. And my other friend, Sarah, was training with a group for a Thanksgiving race. And I mean, this is how little I knew about running. I just ran the 5K and was like, okay, happy Thanksgiving. And I went home. I didn't know they had award ceremonies. I didn't know you could like place in your age group. It was just like, I just like thought you ran and you just went home, you know?
Yeah.
And so my friend Sarah was gonna train for the famous Indy Mini. I think it's North America's largest half marathon. And I was like, Sarah, there's a big difference between 5K and a half marathon, like 10 miles. And but I'm just that friend, that you can convince to do crazy things. And so I would say I haven't stopped running since Indy Mini 2010.
That's cool. That's awesome. What a fun story.
Yeah.
Does she still run?
Sarah does run, but I mean, not like I do. She's done some things I haven't done, like she's done some ultras, and I've really only done one. Her husband is like a serious long distance runner, has like completed 100 miles and 100K. But we all kind of started together. So I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just ebbs and flows. I can remember my early days of running too. And the same kind of thing, like you sign up for a race and really it's kind of the same story. Like I really had no idea. Like I was just trying to be active, and then I found a running group, and
Hmm.
it's just amazing the things that you don't know until you know.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
um, so your why back then was a lot about Weight Watchers, like you were
Hmm.
setting off on a healthier path. And
Hmm.
um, what kind of transformations did you see in yourself from running specifically?
Yeah, I think that like even completing that first half marathon, like I remember my mom and my sister was pregnant at the time with my niece, and they came to watch me finish. And like they were like, how many times did you walk? And I was like, I didn't. I like, and it was just like one of those crazy things, like that they couldn't believe I ran that far. And I feel like yeah, back then it was about like helping me keep this weight off that I had lost, or things like that. But I feel like now it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with having goals and having something to focus on for me, that doesn't involve my work, that doesn't involve my daughter, or not that it can't include her, but that it's just for me, that it's not about anybody else. And I um I feel that I've grown to just enjoy it. Like someone said the other day, something about the weather, and I said, well, I've run outside every single day in 2022. That was a goal I set for myself this year. Um, and they're like, yeah, but there's like, what about like in January? And I'm like, yeah, I went outside every single day this year. And it was just to prove to myself that like the weather can't keep me down, or like, and I feel like that's how the running has changed over the years, is I find new ways to tweak it, or new ways to challenge myself, or but at the same time, it again, it's just about me and my time. And but I do think by doing these crazy things, people are like, I don't know, maybe they get inspired by it, or they just think I'm crazy. I'm not sure.
Is anybody else in your family a runner? Like, did anybody get it when you started down this path?
No. Jason a little bit. After a couple of years of running, Jason went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, listen, you should, your blood pressure is higher than it should be for someone who's only 30. And but Jason will say to this day, he doesn't like running. It is not his favorite thing to do. But he does go out and do it. And my mom recently got inspired because she kind of took like an early retirement. And so she made it 303 days of walking. And then she got sick a couple of weeks ago, but to where she like couldn't get out of bed. But she was like, I made it 303 days of walking. She's like, I can't. And my mom, when she walks, like she's like, she walks, I mean, it's with a purpose, it's an actual form of exercise. And they actually say it's one of the best forms of exercise. So I think it's cool that she's not running or doing 5Ks or anything like that, but she's taken something I'm doing and finding her own way with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say it too. it doesn't really have to be running specifically. I just had this
Mhm,
conversation yesterday. I feel like it's just about moving your body
mhm,
and the many layers of benefits that come from that, everything from physical health to just, and like you, I'm more about the mental wellness of it at this point.
mhm,
I don't even listen to anything when I run. It's just me and
mhm,
my breath and my shoes on the pavement or trail. And I need that time for clarity and reflection and
mhm,
just to sort things out.
mhm,
And any kind of movement though, even swimming,
mhm.
yoga,
Yeah,
anything, people
yeah.
dedicating themselves to moving their bodies more is really just what it comes down to.
Yeah, I agree. My babysitter has had a lot of health issues. She's had a lot of surgeries on her back. And so physically, there's so few things she can do. And she recently found out that silver sneakers was accepted at the local Y here. And so she swims like several days a week. And she said she just feels like it has made such a huge difference from just doing what she was doing before, because it's just another form of movement that keeps her active. And she's probably one of the most active people I know. And I have like, but she's one of the most limited physically that I know.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And there's so many people that it's a little bit maddening in some ways because so many
Mhm,
people that can get out there and it's just like,
mhm,
why aren't you out there? You could,
mhm.
you're able and capable. Um, but also trying to not pass judgment on for whatever
Yeah.
reason they're choosing not to. But I don't know about you, but I've had a history of injury and
Mhm.
to be sidelined and not be able to run is just it just it affects you in a way that I don't know, I can't really describe. As a runner, you probably could relate, but for you not to be able to do the thing that you love, the thing that
Mhm.
helps you process your day and make you feel better mentally, and then to see that other people are just choosing not to care for themselves,
Mhm.
that's hard to understand.
I think coming back after having Lilith, because she was a C-section, and I think that I had already, been doing so much running that my body was kind of broken down a little bit anyway. The coming back and trying, I mean, it probably took 2 full years or more, because the first couple of years were hard because she was young and I had this infant and then I had this toddler, and they're so needy, and I feel like she was probably like 4 years old before I felt like, "Oh my god, like the running is back." Like I feel back to where I was before I had her.
Yeah, I can totally understand what you're saying with that. And I had a C-section as well, and it was hard to be patient during that time of
Mhm,
healing. And but then for me, once I was cleared to start running again, getting back that endurance and that physical
mhm,
fitness, it was like, I don't know, I had something to prove to myself. It was a
mhm,
mission that I was on.
mhm,
Um, and I ran the best marathon of my life after that time. And for me, then moving into other parts of my life where I owned a business and different challenges arose, I felt like then it kind of took a back seat again. So it
mhm,
ebbs and flows for me for sure.
mhm.
But in the last year, definitely regaining focus on it to hopefully even start racing again at some point.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm also of the mindset of I don't really enjoy racing. I want to talk to you about the way you race in a minute too. But for me,
Okay,
I mean, if I never raced again, I wouldn't be sad. It's cool. Like I
okay.
love the feeling of the accomplishment at the ends and
Mhm,
different things that you can achieve with running. But I don't enjoy the physical act of racing. I just enjoy
mm,
running. I'd rather just go run 50 miles to run 50 miles than to be leading up to a race where I
mm.
guess maybe it's the expectation to finish or the
Okay.
obligation to finish or something, the
Uh-huh.
pressure of that. And I've never not finished a race,
Mhm.
but I don't know what it is for me. So I race much less than you do, but I want to hear about your goals that you set for yourself and just the different challenges that you embrace with your running. Tell us about how that looks for you.
Yeah. So originally it was 50 states by 50 years old. And then there was this pandemic.
Yeah, that I'm sure put a
And
wrench in things.
it, so then for 2 years, I only ran what, 3 marathons, and to finish in the time frame with the goals that I had and the way I felt I could do it, it really put me behind a little bit because I really needed to do 3 or 4 every year. And in 2 years, I only did 3, which I got really lucky. And I'm really fortunate that I got to do those 3 during the pandemic. But now I kind of joke like, oh, maybe 50 by 55 but one thing I can tell you is I'm not the only person out there trying to achieve a marathon in every state in the United States. But everybody has a different mindset when it comes to running a marathon in all 50 states. That there are people who are on a mission. They want to get it done. They want to be done with it because of their age, maybe. There's a local runner I know here. Her name is Mary, and her daughter are doing it together. But Mary's in her 60s. So she's like, I want to finish in case I can't, you know? And so she is like, I think, yes, Saturday, she finished state number 38. So they plan to finish in the next like 3 years. And for me, that's not what it's about. It's interesting that you say that you don't like the race, because the race is like the least important part to me about finishing the marathon in all 50 states. Because if you named a state and I've run a marathon in it, I could tell you a funny story, because I try to make it the most even if it's like, I went to Wyoming for like 36 hours, but I can't really tell you a lot about the race except for that it rained. But I can tell you that we went to this bar and we had this amazing time afterwards. And we met these other people from Indiana, but not necessarily a lot about the race, except for that I learned that elevation is hard for me.
Yeah.
But the race itself is not like necessarily like that. Race meant a lot to me because I was really close with my uncle, and his best friend had moved to this town. And he kept telling me just like how beautiful it was there. Wait till you go to Wyoming, wait till you go to Wyoming. And so I felt like when I went there, like it was because he kept saying, just wait till you go to Wyoming, you know? And so that's how I feel about every state that I've completed, is that it's about the journey of going there and being there with my friends or with Jason or whoever, that even the people you meet on the course. I'm not afraid to talk to strangers. And so I want to do the 50 states to just be one of those people who's been to all 50 states. And I did run a marathon, and it's probably the coolest way to see this huge country. I work for a Swedish company, and when I was showing the CEO my map, he was like, Sweden is such a small country compared to the United States. And so when he looks at that, he's like, you really forget how big the United States is until you see that. And so, every year I just kind of sit down with my travel partners and I just say, okay, what's next?
That's so cool. I could learn a lot from your approach with that, because I think if I looked at it from that angle and just changed my mindset, maybe I would toe the line more frequently. For me, I don't know, I put pressure on myself that is unnecessary, I guess. And I'm not really sure why I do that, but I always just feel like there's this internal, I guess, gauge of whether I'm doing well or not based on, of course, time or
Sure.
how you feel physically. And which is one of the reasons I really enjoy trail running much more these days, is because for whatever reason, I just disassociate that with I guess qualifying maybe is what it comes down to for me. Like if
Yeah,
I
sure.
toe the line for a marathon, I always have that in the back of my head.
Hmm.
And for those listening that don't know running, I mean like qualifying for Boston.
Hmm.
Um, so I guess if you take and just consider the experience of it all, I'd probably have a much better time and
Yeah.
appreciate the race itself and just really think of it more as like a run with friends would be better.
And I think because I'm so far off, like qualifying for Boston is, I mean, I feel like I would have to cancel my plans of 50 states, and I would have to completely change my running lifestyle and and focus on so many different things to even attempt to qualify for Boston. Actually, a friend of mine did that this year. And I just think, because I kind of did it vicariously through her, because I watched her go through it, I thought maybe someday, but for now, I just think I just enjoy going out there and doing what I can do and making a plan. Each race, I have like an ABC plan. Like,
Mhm.
if things go well, maybe this will happen, or if things go well, maybe this will happen, and in the end, just celebrating the accomplishment with my friends is what's most important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you mentioned something so valid there is there does need to be a range of goals when you decide to run a race, or even when you're on a training run, quite honestly,
Hmm.
because there's
Hmm.
such a wide variety of things that can happen or dismantle this master plan that you've had in your brain, that you really running teaches you about flexibility. It teaches you
Hmm.
to adapt,
Hmm.
and that is just a skill that I'm sure, like everyone, you've taken it into other areas of your life as well.
Yeah, I work for a sales organization. So, I'm the inside salesperson. So, dealing with a group of salespeople who all have these different personalities and these different ways of working. And, sometimes it's a good thing I go run after work.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. Um, that's another thing too that's different for me in running. Since I've had a child, I don't know if this is the same for you. I'd be interested to know. I used to be pre-kid. I was very like, I had to run at this time of day and I had to know the route and I had to wear this and not that. My watch better be charged. And like, if all the things were not in line, those and other things as well, too, right? Like, my mind going into my run was just so off that it
Mhm.
just affected everything. And now it's like, I realize 10 minutes before, it's time that, oh, my watch is not charged and it's dead. Okay, fine. I'm going anyways. Or
Mm.
you don't even think today and you realize you have this hour of unexpected time. You're like, sweet, I'm going to get a run in. And it's like, I never have to have those ducks in a row anymore like I once
Mhm.
did. I overthought it so much pre-kid. And now it's just like that flexibility, that adaptability, I think is so much
Mhm.
more relevant for me in running now than it ever was before.
I think I put a lot of pressure on myself prior to having a child, like as far as um like the training schedule had to go like no, the training schedule says 5 miles today.
Right.
And now I um after Lilith was born, I only had like maybe 10 weeks to get ready for a marathon, because I mean, coming off the C-section. And so I started like Googling like the easiest training plans, and I found this like 3-day a week plan. And so what would that have been? October. Yeah, she was 4 months old and I finished a marathon.
That's
And
unbelievably awesome.
but I put no pressure on myself. I just did the training that I could do. Um, and and of course it's like one of my worst marathon finish times, I guess, but I didn't I just was like, well,
It was about so much more than that, though. I mean,
Yeah.
I would
Right.
argue that it was like your best marathon because you
Yeah.
overcame so much physically just to be able to
Right.
even show up that day.
Right. Right. Yeah. And so I think that's what that's what having a child taught me. It's like I've been known to run at 4 a.m., noon, 4 p.m., 7 p.m., just whenever it works, it works.
Yeah.
I don't, and if the run goes badly, oh well, that's
Yeah.
okay.
Gosh, you're like totally just speaking what's in my head about that. And I'm just thankful to be able to run most of the time at all. So Lilith also has done some races, right? Isn't she starting to branch out in that way? Aren't you coaching her and other kids, the next generations of runners?
Yeah. Yeah. A couple of years ago, the local, for our local run club, her kids had basically aged out of, and so they were like, well, you're the next one up. And I think that Lilith's approach to running is probably better than anyone I know. She doesn't care about her finish time. She doesn't care, like, she just goes and she just does what she does. And she might even do a cartwheel right in the middle of a 5K.
I love that.
Like, she, I think in many ways, she just does it because I'm the coach, and it's definitely not her favorite sport, but, she just kind of tags along. But, I would say, so I just finished my first 2 years as like the head coach. And it has, it's amazing. Kids are, gosh, they're amazing. I'm so amazed by their the way they challenge themselves, um, and how much they grow in such short periods of time, and how much they change, and and like the kids who are so coachable, and then the kids who are just like fun to have on the team. you
Yeah.
know
I love that you said that Lilith will sometimes even just do like a cartwheel in the middle of a 5K, because to me, it kind of goes back to a little bit of what you said earlier about, well, the schedule says 5 miles, so we're doing 5 miles. And that rigidity that happens to us as adults
Mhm.
when we move away from just remembering to have fun,
Mhm.
essentially, remembering your why. Like, she's out
Mhm.
there, just to be part of it and have fun. And it's
Yeah.
just, at what point do we as adults forget that?
Yeah. And I try to like during cross country season, we have like 3 practices a week. And I try to always like at the end of practice, or maybe the whole practice is a game, or it's some kind of challenge, or because I don't want the kids to lose sight of that this isn't, I want them to enjoy running. I don't want
Yeah.
them to feel like it's this chore that they have to do. And so today we kick off this winter running thing that I created last year. And we run indoors for the winter, and we'll do like silly things like, okay, now this lap you have to go around backwards, or this lap you have to skip, or this lap you have to do lunges all the way around, to just allow them to have a little bit of fun.
I think that's
And
so important.
yeah, and it's amazing to me because we're talking a 5-year-old and sometimes a 14-year-old. So how do you engage a 5-year-old and a 14-year-old? And I mean, I didn't run cross country growing up. I wasn't a runner growing up. But man, Google can teach you.
What did we do before Google?
I just wonder. And I thought I'm going to try this game I found on Google. And I have been so amazed that have you ever played sharks and minnows in a pool?
Yeah, I know what it is.
But so you can play it as a running game where you put a kid in the
Hmm.
middle and they don't even know that they're practicing running short bursts because they're more focused on the game.
Right.
And, sometimes I think maybe as adults, we should remember those things
Yeah,
because,
absolutely.
yeah, but I
Um,
do, I think they inspire me just as much as, you know, they, probably more than they know because I'm always seeing, like, every year I have to pick who is the most like the runner of the year,
mhm.
this youth runner of the year. And this year I'm so excited because to just see his improvement, but yet this is the first kid who will stick around for a whole cross country meet to cheer on his teammates, who tells his teammates good job, so
Yeah,
I think that's what's most important.
it is. It is. And I love the way you make it fun for them too, because so many kids, and even as adults, I just had this conversation with our friend Paul recently
Mm,
about how our sport is somebody else's sports punishment,
mhm,
right? And the way that, if you don't get that play right, if you don't make the catch or make the goal, then you're running 10 laps or whatever. And it's
mhm,
like, I want people and kids especially to be like, oh, I get to go run today, not, oh,
mhm,
I gotta go run all these laps. um, so it's just again changing the mindset for kids too and helping them realize that running is fun and it is rewarding. And as an adult, I think sometimes it's harder to communicate that. I coached adults when I was coaching, and it's not as fun other than I guess the social aspect, but we're not really playing
yeah,
sharks and minnows as adults.
right, right,
It's more like, people would like grab a drink afterwards together or
right,
somehow just be social with each other is what it would be for adults. But to manifest something in a kid that they can take on to adulthood that they can always do. It's not like a
mhm,
team sport where they have to have 10 other
mhm,
people to do it or all this equipment. Um, they can do it solo by themselves wherever they're at for life. And I think there's so much
mhm.
value to that in running that really no other sport has.
I think because for myself, like, let's say it's a speed work day. Afterwards, I'll, open my Garmin app and I'll like reflect, like, okay, how did I do? Well, how does this compare to the last time I did this particular exercise? And my sister was telling me yesterday that a dad pulled a kid out of a dugout and was like reaming this girl for striking out in softball. I mean, 12-year-olds,
Oh my
like,
God.
right? And I try to do like if we have a practice or like if I time them, I'll always say, like, what did you learn from this activity we did today? Or like if say several kids participated in a meet or a local race, I'll say, so for those of you who are at the race, how did you do? What did you think? What did you learn from that race? Because every 5K is different. If it's really flat, you have a different strategy than if you are going to go and run a hilly one. And so I always like for them to tell me, well, how do you think you did? You
Yeah.
know, rather than me telling them how I think they did.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure from their answers, you can even help them with their next steps and help meet
Right.
them right where they're at and really show up in a way
Hmm.
that they need you to, based on
Hmm.
you telling them what you think that they should have experienced.
Hmm. Right.
And it's a discipline, I mean, it's a
Hmm.
discipline in a different way than a baseball game is, right? I
Hmm.
mean, my son plays baseball in season, and you don't really have to do much to show up, stand there and swing the bat. Maybe you run the bases,
Hmm.
maybe the ball comes to you when somebody else hits it. But at least at his age, there's not a lot of discipline that goes into that type of activity. But running at his age, I mean, you need to show up for that. You need to be committed to
Mhm,
that, especially if you intend to actually run the whole 5K or whatever it is. It's just
mhm.
um, a different structure, a different way
Right.
of approaching something
Mhm.
than some of the team sports are. And I love that he can, and I see that with him in karate too. He shows up in a different way when he knows it's for himself
Mhm.
versus, when he thinks maybe he can count on other people to
Right.
contribute to the day or the experience.
Right. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Lilith is not a super fan of running. You said, what is her main
Gymnastics. Yeah.
gymnastics? Well,
Oh,
that's a
yeah.
whole nother thing. Oh gosh, that's a whole nother level of competing that just leaves me inspired to watch that type of ability and skill is pretty
Mhm.
amazing.
Yeah, she's definitely not a team sport person. She's, nothing with balls or, but I appreciate the way she practices it like I do running. Like she is always doing a cartwheel or always practicing something. And so I can appreciate that she practices it the way, I do running basically.
Yeah. So whatever it is, just be dedicated to your craft.
Right.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, for
absolutely.
sure.
So what is coming up next for you? What is on your goal list for the coming year or the coming months?
This is the first time in a long time that I don't have a clear path in 2023. Um I am pretty sure I'll do the Lincoln Marathon in Nebraska in May. I because there was such a going to be such a long break between races. I've been focusing a lot on speed and maybe going to try to PR my half marathon in January if the weather cooperates in Chicago. But I think that how do I say it? I turned 40 in February, so I feel like I'm not going to let the age define me. I'm just going to keep doing what I always do and keep running and hopefully knock out a few more states next year.
Cool. And I love that, just because a plan may have got derailed, that, you're not just throwing in the towel when something goes wrong. You just kind of
Mhm.
adjust and adapt
Yeah.
like we talked about. And age is definitely not a deterrent. It has nothing to do with success as a runner
Right.
for sure. So I'm excited to see what you do. You're definitely a seasoned athlete, and I like watching your journey, and I, am inspired by what you're doing and how you're influencing our youth. So thank you for all that
Yeah.
you're doing.
Yeah, I always hope that that's what it is, that more people find it inspiring than people find it annoying. Because I think sometimes there's this stigma that oh, if you didn't post about it, the run didn't happen kind of thing. But for me, it's well, what if someone sees this post today and then because of that, they change their mind and they go out for a walk or they go out for a run or they go join Planet Fitness to start walking on the treadmill.
Yeah, you really hit it on the head there, because I can understand what you're saying in regards to being unsure about what to share. And sometimes it feels like you're just looking for like a high five or a pat on the back or something. And I hesitate to put something out there because of those feelings.
Mhm.
But then I remind myself that, for one, nobody cares about what I'm doing as much as I think that they might care about what I'm doing, right? Like nobody's
Mhm.
paying attention as much as you think they are,
Right.
because they have their own lives to live. So I get past my imposter syndrome by just saying just share the thing, because exactly
Mhm.
what you just said, somebody, even if it's one person, because even one person is still an audience. And even if that one person says, all right, she said it's not that bad out today, I'm going to go out too. Like that's
Right.
success to me. That is
Mhm.
successful.
Right.
So I concur.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time
Oh,
today.
yeah.
And I just loved the conversation.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was great. Super
I'll,
fun.
I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
This was a really fun conversation for me because Deanna is so relatable. I think everyone, whether you're a runner or not, can really take so much away from today's discussion. Here were my top 3 favorite things. Move your body. In whatever way you choose to do so, do it in a way that is best for you, but definitely do it. 2, the race is the least important part of it. Enjoy the experience, the people, the places. 3, stop putting so much pressure on yourself. It's okay to have a plan B and even C, and be flexible and willing to adapt. If you loved this episode, do the best thing possible and share it. Rate it, review it, and let us know what you loved about it. Check the show notes for more on Deanna, as well as links to Cal Striders and all the ways to stay connected. Stride on, friends. Until next time.